Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining me. My name is Bradley Shaw, and tonight on Between the Covers, we have lovely author Kate Hanssen joining us, who's the author of Following Dharma, a beautiful story and journey book through India, wasn't it? So, Nepal, sorry, to anyone from Nepal. Kate, please do tell us more about and all about this wonderful book and journey you experienced.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting sort of a space in my life, actually. If I go back there, it's quite a time ago now. It's 6 years ago now. But in 2015, I had just come out of what had been a very emotionally challenging few years, and I made the decision to go to Nepal with my son for a 3-week holiday. And while we were there, I decided to send him off trekking, and I took a bit of a break, did some yoga healing, that sort of stuff. Then the earthquake happened. So some of you may remember the 2015 earthquake, and I just happened to be in a cafe having a lassi, and there I was, and it was happening all around me. So I, from that point, I guess I had a moment where the first time in my life I felt like I'd been grounded, if you like. I don't know how to explain that, but it was a bit of a moment where I really felt like I'd confronted something in my life, and I made the decision to stay in the country and not go home when everybody else did. So the next few weeks, after being stuck in Kathmandu for a few days with little resources, I got together with a group of volunteers, and we started taking aid out to villages. And from there, the story, I guess, of me learning more about the culture, the people, their way of life, and the spiritual connections. And I guess the title of the book, Following Dharma, was where I started to realize that for the first time in my life, even though there was chaos around me and I was in the middle of this chaotic experience, I actually felt really peaceful within myself. And it had been the first time I kind of felt that in my life. And I thought, what is this? And it also led me to start exploring some of the Vedic traditions, and in particular Ayurveda, which is the science of life, which is sprung up from that region of the world, I guess, over 6,000 years ago. And with that interest combined with my time in Nepal, it sort of added more depth to what I was learning. So along the way, I started to explore that, and then I could see that interwoven into the way of life in there, the way people lived and the simplicity of how they lived. And for example, in the middle of the year, when it was a bit quiet during the monsoon period and we couldn't go up into the mountains very easily, I helped my husband's family plant rice. And that was one of the most profound experiences ever. So during that time while I was there, I started writing this blog, of course. And after coming back from Nepal, I was there for about the year, and then I came back to Australia, and I just had this grief of leaving the country behind. And I guess I was trying to find a way to stay connected to it. At that stage, I had married my husband, and I decided on a whim to turn it into a book. And so off I went.
Good. No, it's a wonderful story. Now, there's so many questions in there. I didn't want to interrupt you, but there's a few things I got to go back over there, because some of the pieces you just discussed were amazing. So let's go back to the start there. You said that you were there for a 3-week holiday with your son. Now, assumedly he was fine and got out of the country, or he left you there after that period, after the event, So when you decided to stay, and I have to ask this, was this something you'd always, because you went to this country out of choice, was it something you'd always been interested in, always had a feeling for, always wanted to explore, but never had the resources or the exposure here in Australia? And then when you got there was like an epiphany or some sort of...
well, to be honest, it was really interesting. My cousin always used to say to me, you should go to Nepal, you'd love it there. And so in 2013, I actually went there on a quick 2-week holiday with my younger son. And that's when I actually met my husband for the first time, and we were trekking. It was one of the hardest things I ever did. And I remember when I left the country, there was this feeling of like, I'm not done yet. And I need to go back there. Of course, I got back to Australia, got back into work, got back into life, and it was sort of went to the back of the recesses of the mind. But there was enough there that, you know, little things I started to see and remind me of it. So when I did make that decision the second time around to go again, I already knew that if I went there, I was going to, you know, get in touch with yoga and, you know, healing. And I wasn't trekking this time. So the epiphany, the main epiphany, I think, that you're referring to was that moment where I, for the first time in my life, actually felt like I was in my body 100%, which was kind of weird maybe to some people, because they think, well, why would you not be? But I feel that for a lot of my life, I haven't been. I haven't been the observer of my life and the observer of outside. But it was kind of like I suddenly just felt like there was no fear anymore. I could just drop everything. So actually, before I went on to do all the relief work, I did a couple of weeks there, and then I made the decision to fly home, and I packed up my whole house. Sounds terrible, but I kicked my kids out and told them to go and find somewhere to live. And I packed up all my stuff. I gave stacks away until I had nothing but my car, my computer, my guitar. And then I went back to Nepal. And that's where I stayed for the year. And Gavin was an amazing support during that time. And what I saw in him was this leadership. And so his background, he's grown up in a small city in the west of Nepal. The west of Nepal. And going up towards the Mustang region, which is the more Tibet, where Tibet is. And he'd grown up in a poor family. They didn't have anything. And when I was staying there, he'd come down to stay with me in Pokhara, which is a tourist town. And so he, I guess, had become a bit my guide because I trusted him, and he'd already proven that he was trustworthy. And so he was a big support during this time and everything we did. And I just kept seeing these qualities in this young man that was just like, wow, like defied his years. And before we got to know each other, I just thought, wow, like there's something we need to explore. And so, you know, of course, one thing leads to another, and then we ended up getting married. And now he's here with me. We've been together, 6 years now.
Good. Wow. Well, congratulations. And that evolves through the story, I imagine, of the experience you had all together, that falling in love. And that's amazing too. Like, you actually had to culturally adjust to that whole country, but you say, as you said, you accepted it 100%, that it was natural. Like, it wasn't a challenge in it as such as a desire to just embrace it. And it's interesting you say that, because I read somewhere that Buddha has always said that if you let something go, you value it more, which is weird because you think you haven't got it anymore, but how can you value it? But he always says that. And I think that's what you're trying to say, that you've released yourself of all the wants and now live in a place that's not needing, and that's nice.
That was probably the biggest lesson that Nepal gave me, and that actually would happen on a couple of little occasions as well, smaller situations where even in my relationship with Gavin, I made the decision when I realized I had feelings for him. You know, I said to myself, I have no expectations of receiving anything. I'm just going to just feel that and experience that. And of course, he decided to return it. So that was great. Good. You know, there was something there for me. But down the track later on, there was an experience we had a little bit of a disagreement. And, you know, you can imagine culturally we come from very different worlds. And so there's constant challenges, not only with communication due to language differences, but also just cultural stuff. And it was in that moment that I meditated, and I was like, you know, normally my normal reaction would be to withdraw and pull away in that situation, but I was guided to go, no, you have to lean in more, you have to give more. And I did that, and then it evolved and it shifted again, and then we were able to move into the next sort of phase of that relationship. And it's something that I still teach myself to practice even now when we're back in Australia, because the tendency is still there. You know, the natural thing when something's not right is to pull back and go, ooh, you know, and protect yourself. But as you said, sometimes it's the opposite. It's about letting go or leaning in that allows us to expand than hold on.
That's good. That's wonderful. So Devin, is it?
Govin, yeah.
Govin. You had you're married here, or do you have a traditional Nepal?
We did. We had a traditional Nepalese marriage.
Oh, that's amazing. Well done.
That was a very surreal experience. None of my family could come over at the time.
Wow.
So I had to borrow Nepalese family. I'd made a friend over there and she helped me with that. So that was a lot of fun, I guess. We got to go a lot of shopping for trying on saris and all sorts of things. And it was a very interesting experience. And I've actually been to a couple of marriages over in Nepal now. And one of the things that I found really intriguing is in their culture, their belief is that when you get married, you marry for 7 lifetimes.
Wow.
Yeah. And I thought, wow, and it's an interesting one because the more that we're together, we often make this joke, like, because there is a significant age gap between us, but we often feel like, I kind of feel like we've been here before.
You can be like a cat and just count them down. Divorce 1, divorce 2, divorce 3, divorce 4. That's it. Next one, we're out. Well, that's good. That's good. So writing the book. Let's talk about the book. We could evolve into your whole, which isn't part of the book anyway. Tell us about writing of the book. Now, you said it was a blog originally, but now it was something you were using to construct a memory of the experiences, and then decided to push it into a book and pursue publication? Or did all the things, as you say, just seem to happen naturally? What was your path like for the book itself?
It's a funny thing. If I can take you back, like many years ago, I was doing some therapy work and meditation work, and in that would keep coming up to write. And I've always, that when the pen's in the hand, I just love the feeling of writing, which is kind of weird because we don't even use a pen to write anymore, do we? We use a computer. It's, so I've always felt there's a book to write within me. And I used to think I was actually going to write about my grandparents' beautiful story because they have a beautiful love story that came out of the Second World War. But when I was in Nepal, as part of my journey, because I went through the whole process of being in Nepal is slow. Life is slow. And so when life is that slow, it's a beautiful thing because your creativity has a chance to surface. It's like they're saying, when you're bored, the best inspiration comes. It's true. So because life is so slow in there and there's lots of time, a little phrase they say in Nepal is life is long, which is so ridiculous to us, but it's in there, it's true. So you have time. And so blogging was a way of just sharing information. And I thought people are probably getting sick of me on social media, so maybe I should start blogging. So I started doing that, and it was a way to sort of keep a record of what was happening in there. And there was lots of things we were achieving and whatnot. And I wanted to also keep tabs on what I was going through, because I knew that I was going through this transformation process.
Yeah.
But so when I got back and when I came back to Australia, I did have to admit, for the first 6 months in 2016, I was quite depressed. I didn't know how to be here. I actually found the whole place quite offensive, and I don't mean that the way it sounds, but like just looking at the gluttony and the consumerism and the amount, the materialism and just the obsession and just where our minds are, I just couldn't be there. And so I started to retreat a bit. Wow. And I started looking back through some of my memories, I guess. Now, hang on, I've got this blog there. Maybe I should write. Maybe I should turn it into a book.
Yeah.
So I just started playing with it, and the next minute I'm just writing pages and pages. And it was really interesting because I guess a third of it had been written in the blog, but I did have to do a lot of adjusting and keep going back over. I think I edited it about 7 times or more, like changing bits, adding bits, taking bits out. And then I found also some old blogs that I'd done, which I thought, actually, that's kind of useful to give that context. I'll throw that in there. And and I just got really into it, and I really just started to enjoy the process of doing that. Good. And I started joining a few Facebook groups, writers groups and things like that to help, with inspiration. And then someone suggested me to do some self-publishing, and then I was like, I don't know how to do that. But anyway, it was really good process. I met some amazing people along the way who helped me just with little things. Yep. And I think I'm definitely going to do more. Like I've already got one that I've sort of started again, which is about the next phase of this whole following Dharma, because Dharma is also about that, finding that purpose, pathway. And although I sometimes feel like I fall off that, there's also something that pulls me back towards, like a compass, if you like. Yeah. Magnet. So that's sort of there.
Good. Well done. No, and it's great. It's great. You just said that you're going to keep writing some books, more stories, more experiences. And how has your husband adapted to Australia, as you say, coming from, where time stands still into where time is abused? How has he found the transition to our culture?
It's fun, sometimes I love it.
It must be crazy through his eyes.
It is. And I do love hearing that every now and again, his little view of certain things. And he says, sometimes he says, oh, children, he says, in here, children just, they don't know how to play. They don't entertain themselves, and it's like, yeah, actually, I think you're right,
Yeah, we give them devices, but they don't actually know how to do it themselves. Yeah. I noticed that myself.
Yeah, he says they can't, if they let go, they can't survive. He says, in Nepal, they can play on the side of the road and we don't worry about them. We know they're not going to hit by a bus, but, it's...
Yeah, that's right. No, I know. It's funny how diversified, how our culture and others see it and how we see them. One of the things I guess COVID has been good for, maybe I'm hoping that culturally it sort of forced us to slow down. A lot of people sitting at home, a lot of people using time, a lot of people thinking about their lives and reviewing and having time to spend with family, and not be rushing themselves madly through the world. I'm hoping that we come out of this a little bit more settled and stronger culture than that. I hope, but I'm not political and I'm not I'm not probably going to have a say in it all, but I'm hopeful that I see that happen. So tell me about the book again, if we get back on topic. Sorry. What was the hardest thing for you to write in the book for you?
There's couple of sections where I guess
I thought you were going to say a couple of sex scenes. Then I was going to say, what? Whoa, hey, hang on a bit.
A couple of sections where I had to write about, I guess, my backstory or my history, family stuff that I thought, I hope they don't get offended by that, or people that I might have had to bring in. I changed their names, I guess, in the book so they know who they are, but their names have been changed, and they've all been sent a copy anyway, so they know. But that was probably the most challenging bit, I guess, and just going, do I really want to reveal that much? But then I thought,
guess that's when you write a memoir, that's the biggest challenge, is how honest, how brave, how open and exposed you need to be.
Yeah, and I think if I read it again right now, I think there would be areas where I'd want to even go more into it or give more, but it's one of those things that evolves as you do, isn't it? And it's a challenging one to know where that's enough and where it is, because when you're speaking it or writing it, you have all the context. So for you, that's enough. But for someone out there who doesn't know you from bar of soap, it's...
Well, we're going to ask questions. What does that mean? Tell us more.
So, but then I think, well, maybe that's why the second one would be good to write, because you can then give more, maybe, and context for somebody who's read that will probably then enjoy the second one, because it will give them more context of something. But
that's great. There's more to come. I'm sure readers are going to enjoy that part. So tell us one question just about, you said earlier you threw your kids out on the street. So are they still supportive of this book, given that you've gone through this experience and then written about it, and now they're supposed to be happy for you, or are they still...
No, they're gorgeous. They actually, at that time, I was having my 40th birthday in that break. So when I came back and I kicked them out, I was turning 40, so some might say I was having a crisis. But anyway, I was having a birthday before I flew back to Nepal, and my eldest son actually got up and spoke the most beautiful speech, and basically gave me permission and just said, look, we want our mother to love the whole world if that's what she needs to do. So go for it, Mum. We love what you're doing. And they were really amazingly supportive. The amount of people that we raised something like $50,000 in that 6 months for doing that relief work from people all over the world. And it was just amazing, the support we got. It blew me away. It made me realize that all my life where I doubted the things that I could do, I realized that actually you can do anything. It's just a matter of changing perspective and getting out of your own way, really. But we've all heard that before. It's easier said than done.
Oh, it is. And I think your book is really a capsule of that information, that process, from a woman's perspective. As you said, it's only one person, and that's what a memoir is. There's no right or wrong in that story, because it's yours. You were there, you wrote it, you shared it. The readers will take their impression of it and their own interpretation, and that's what makes it stronger. And I think you've done it beautifully. We're proud to be a part of the process with you, so we've enjoyed that. So if I can ask, with writing now, have you cultured that into an idea of becoming a habit that you do regularly now, or is it just something you write as you spur?
Well, my ultimate dream, the whole reason I'm doing real estate at the moment, is to get to a point where, well, before COVID anyway, where I can, spend 6 months or whatever of the year in Nepal or overseas at least, in a slow cooked life, they say, and writing and creating, and that's what I love doing. But unfortunately, right now we're sort of in here, and I say unfortunately. It is unfortunate because we're traveling. So I'm here at the moment, just earning money and figuring out the next steps. But as soon as that's sort of removed, Gavin and I have pledged that we'll be heading back to Nepal at least for 3 to 4 months, and I definitely need time to write. Even what's happened in the last couple of years, who knows what will come out of that or where. It
must be hard for him with his family. As well, not being able to see him.
He lost his father last year, so that was really challenging. So we couldn't go there, and
I've heard stories people had that happen.
So that was a bit hard. And this year in Nepal culture, it's the 12-month anniversary that you go back, and that's usually the significant
I've
moment.
Heard that.
Work through that. So I don't even know if we can do that.
No, I don't know what's happening at the moment with international travels. I haven't looked, but anyway, I hope it does work for him. But for you, for your journey and your book, what do you hope that the readers, when they share your experiences, what do you hope they get out of this book with you?
I hope that I pop a few windows open for people for different perspectives.
Yeah.
One of the things I think in my life, what I realized is that when you're surrounded by the same environment and the same view all the time, you can't imagine anything different. So sometimes the best way out of that space, especially if you're someone who suffers depression or that kind of limiting belief, if you can pluck yourself out of that and pop yourself in a completely different environment that challenges you culturally, mentally, stimulates you, you'll create a new pathway, and if you can create a new view, then you can start to imagine a different pathway or a different life. And
absolutely.
Just give people an opportunity to expand and, give them permission, I guess, to things that maybe they hadn't given themselves permission before because they judged themselves or allowed others to judge them, and realize that actually it's okay, because for me, it was the best thing that I could have done. On every level, and whether or not Gavin and I last forever or not, that's not relevant, but just the experience that we've had in the here and now, and my family and their experience of it as well. Like my parents have been there now as well, all my kids have been there, and what they've gotten out of it, it's been worth it. And we've run tours there for the last 5 years before COVID, and every single human that we've taken there has had a significant transition within themselves because of the experience they've had there.
That's beautiful.
So if I can give somebody a little bit of a hint of that, even if they can't ever go there, then that's awesome. Yeah.
Well, I think you've achieved that. I think in this book you've expressed not only the country but the inner reflection on that country. One last question I was just thinking as well, if I may. What was it like to experience the earthquake, not just the event, but also that aftermath you said, where people were trying to rebuild lives? They were already a country afflicted by a certain level of poverty, so it must have been even more shattering. So what was that exposure like? A lot of us here, we don't have earthquakes.
What I got from that is the resilience. The way people process life and death over there is completely different. I think a hell of a lot more healthy than what we do it. Their ability to work through disaster just made, really, for me, it's like we don't even understand the half of it. We're not resilient, we're not resourceful, we lack a lot
dependable.
We lack a lot that. So
you can see that when the toilet paper runs out.
Exactly.
What the hell?
Because over there don't even use toilet paper. So
I know. I was like, come on, people.
But the biggest thing that I learned was that it's not necessarily about fixing it. It's about just validating the stories, the feelings, the emotions of where people are. When people want to tell you their story, and there were people over there, I remember sitting down with old ladies in villages and I couldn't understand half what they were saying, but they just needed someone to hear them and just go, yeah, we hear you. And that was often what a lot of people wanted. They didn't necessarily want you to come and fix it because from what my understanding is, we can't fix it anyway, because what do I know about how they live? And how can I judge that I know it better than them anyway? So to say that, I think you need this is really, really, I think, arrogant. You know, what do I know about what you need? And let people tell you what they need rather than acting and projecting on what you think they need. And that's the biggest thing that I got out of that journey, and to be humble enough to just receive as well, you know, through that process, and watching them give when they have nothing.
Yeah, that's it. That's what dumbfounds you, isn't it? And just as you say, and just growing in that perspective, understanding a different perspective, as you say, not, as you said, outside of yourself, and not because we're all inner. We're always, you know, our culture's inner. You know, we're always looking inwards and what we are, what we give and get, and all this. But if you look back, you're actually part of a bigger picture. It's quite amazing to sit back and realize. I mean,
sense of community that exists.
Yeah,
you know, the support was in the community. The fact that there were people who would drop everything and come and help. You know, another area that had been majorly affected, and do that was amazing. Leave their jobs, whatever. That's all right. I'm going to go and help do this. And it wasn't about throwing money at it. It was actually action. And that was the thing that I loved, because so many people here just throw money at stuff and go, that'll fix it, you know, and it's like, it doesn't.
Or they go off and buy all the toilet paper instead of going around giving out toilet paper. I mean, why didn't people, you know, actually stop and say, hey, have my neighbours got enough food? Are my neighbours okay? Is everyone, you know, what is this COVID doing to us? What are we doing in our community? Let's help each other. But no. Some of us went the other way. It was so disappointing, but I agree. It must have been an amazing experience to be sitting there amongst those people in that situation, an earthquake situation. And I admire you for that, for just, you know, as you say, having the courage yourself to stand a part of it, but join that community. You know, as you said, you didn't know what you were involved in, and that's a beautiful thing alone, is to explore that. So I kudos to you. Well done, Kate. And again, thank you so much for sharing with us and sharing the time. Everybody watching, thank you for watching Kate's beautiful story. Her book is available everywhere great books are sold, online and in bookstores, libraries. Also, though, do go to your bookstore and buy the copy if you can, because we do want to support our local businesses. They've been affected as well by the COVID in Australia, so please help them. But get a copy of this book. Kate's book is marvellous and enjoyable and real. It's an authentic story from a really lovely woman. Thank you, Kate. Take care.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And I hope that some of the readers get a chance to come with us and visit Nepal in the real one day.
Absolutely. Please do tell everyone how and when that can happen. Is there a website, or have you?
Yeah, no, we do. We have a website called Reconnection Tours.
Good.
At the moment, obviously, we're not running tours because of COVID.
No.
In the future, we will be. And we give back to communities, and we employ local people to get involved. And there's no middleman. So and they get a real authentic grassroots.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to put some information about that in the book for you. I think we'll add that in. Yeah, we'll get that organised. So, yes, people, grab a copy of this book, enjoy Kate's experiences. Hopefully get to meet her and work with her through that experience in the future. Thank you again. Everybody take care, stay safe, and we'll talk next time.
Thank you.
Now.